This podcast contains bones, blood, smut, and swear words.
Act 1. Welcome, penitents. Hello and welcome to the Frontline Fifth, a Locked Tomb podcast where brand spanking new novitiates explore the Locked Tomb series for the first time, while a couple of dried out bone witches cackle over how little they really know. We're currently reading Gideon the Ninth by Tamsin Muir, and this week we are recording from inside a bone cocoon as we disclose all the intricate little details of Chapter 12. I'm your host, Marie, and I spent all day today searching the infinite halls of Caden House to find my co-host, Hannah. What happened to you? Why didn't you come home last night?
This one is actually my bad, and I do feel bad about it. I spent the entire night hiding behind like weird suits of armor and tapestries trying to jump out at Brooke and John. But I did fall asleep back there, so I don't actually know if I scared them at all. But we're going to assume that they were terrified.
It's an answer. It's not a good one, but it's an answer. Okay. We also have on the podcast today two little baby necros who are breaching the hatch to the facility for the first time, Brooke and John. John, Brooke, what nonsense were you getting up to that kept you from coming home for over 24 hours?
I was hiding from the trick-or-treaters coming to my apartment for Halloween. I unfortunately did not do candy this year, and I feel like a terrible person.
Yeah, you should have been
that
hiding.
Makes you a bad person.
Horrible.
You turn all the lights off and pretend like you weren't home?
We're on the second floor, and we had volleyball that night. So, like, we weren't going to be home for most of it anyway, so I didn't bother with candy. And then, of course, being a dumbass, somebody rang my doorbell at, like, 6 o'clock, and I was like, oh, I wonder if I have a package, not thinking. So I go downstairs. Because I was cooking dinner and just turn the heat on high. Doorbell rings, go downstairs. It's a bunch of kids. I obviously don't have candy. I feel like an asshole. Next year, we're doing king-size candy bars. We're hopefully karma.
I do the exact opposite every year where we buy like way too much candy in the fervent hope that anyone will come. And this year we had a record number of trick-or-treaters. We had 12, and I am eating all of the candy by myself.
Hiding from trick-or-treaters. Ugh, brutal. See, if I didn't come home from 24 hours, if I did not make it into my own bed, it was probably because I was at a party. I found a very cozy little corner of a couch somewhere, and I'm curled up fast asleep. So cozy as the party rages around me.
That's so beautiful.
Well, now that I finally found you all, conveniently, not dead in a bone, and you're welcome, by the way, because I didn't have to come rescue you, I guess.
Sorry, thank you, Marie.
Yeah. I guess it's time to ask you for your first impressions of Chapter 12. What important information did you glean in the depths of the facility?
Oh my gosh. People are opening locked doors.
There was one rule.
There's one
You
rule.
had one job.
There was one rule. But we've kind of started stringing together some pieces, right? Right? Like maybe, what was the rule? The rule was something like you can't actually open a locked door unless you have permission. And then it turns out that this weird ring we got is a key ring, which I was so confused for the longest time what we meant by a key ring. I did not understand. We literally got a little swirly piece of metal on which you slide keys. So apparently we have a key ring. Maybe people are getting permission, and by permission, I guess that means a key.
I'm saying if someone hands you a key to a door, I feel like that's permission to open the door. No?
Yeah.
Like if they're like, here's the key.
I'm just going to assume that we have permission and people aren't breaking rules. I think we have people with permission to open locked doors. Very exciting.
I'm suspicious. This whole thing, and this is why I was annoyed at the beginning, is that we read one chapter this week, and this chapter is so juicy and full of so much, and you were like, yeah, hard stop, one chapter, and then wait till next week. So,
This is also, so I was the one, my fault. Mea culpa, who picked that we would only do one chapter this week, and it is because I feel like it's juicy, and I have a lot of thoughts. And a lot of my thoughts folks who have been listening to the second half will know that I'm obsessed with Canaan House. I'm just obsessed with the house itself. I don't understand what the fuck is going on there. So my main takeaway from this is that I really wish I had Cam and Pal's little like carbon dater that they just poke at shit and they're like, haha, 9,000 years old.
Yes. Same. So excited that we have met Cam and Pal, and that's just where I'm gonna leave it. That's where I'm gonna leave it. I'm glad that we have seen the facility, and let's get into it. So, I'd tell us to all hold hands, but that would make it very hard to climb down the ladder as we descend into the facility for the very first time in episode 6. Sweat and blood and old burnt bone. Act 2. Get off your ass and help me.
This section of Frontline 5th is safe for anyone who hasn't read past Chapter 12.
Let's recap. In Chapter 12, Harrow goes missing. Gideon encounters the 6th. Gideon discovers the facility. Harrow doesn't die in a bone.
Okay, so we hear a little more about Gideon's day-to-day in Canaan House, in which she mostly trains by doing hundreds of sit-ups and push-ups and pull-ups, of which I can do none of those except for the sit-ups,
The sit-ups.
Yeah, I can do those. And she watches the other houses and she fawns over Dulcinea, and I especially love the image of her sitting there holding
It's so funny! A ball of yarn as Dulcinea does her crocheting. What is it? She says, sitting darkly hooded, holding a ball of yarn as for her crocheting. Okay, there's a vivid image in my head. I cannot quite put my finger on it. The closest I'm thinking, and I don't know if this exists, I think in my head, what I'm trying to get at is some like comic series where like Darth Vader is playing a domestic, like wearing aprons.
Yeah.
Playing dad. Like, is that a thing?
It is a pretty great aesthetic of her like fully hooded, death paint, sunglasses all the time, just slowly unrolling a ball of yarn.
And Dulcinea loves it. Dulcinea is like, yeah, like lift me up over here, hold my yarn. And she says this to Gideon.
I love making you my servant.
Yeah, I love that I can just like order around.
Who else would do this with the ninth?
Yeah, who else would dare? Who else would dare?
But also, like, at the same time, Dulcinea is basically her best friend in the whole house.
Yeah.
Right? Like, she hasn't seen Harrow in, basically since Harrow was spying on her dueling.
I think Gideon maybe gets some satisfaction out of this, but honestly, what's kind of cool is the way they've set up this first like part of the chapter is that nothing has changed in this house. The routines are exactly the same. Nobody has made new friendships. And even I think the Dulcinea thing, like, she a little bit feels like she's being super political here, right? Like, this doesn't feel maybe a little authentic, but mostly it feels like she's doing a power play here.
Maybe a little, yeah.
That's how I'm interpreting it, is her just being like, I'm doing this because I can. And maybe, like, it's kind of fun for me a little bit, but, like, I don't know. I'm getting the sense that there's a strategy here, and I could be off, but that's the vibes.
I feel like Dulcinea is, like, on the one hand, she's so charming. I find her terribly charming. And on the other hand, she's so entitled. Like, I think she just assumes that people will serve her.
Yeah, she's dying and she's cute and like everybody feels bad for her. And so like why wouldn't they just milk that shit?
I mean, I do respond this way to people in sun hats regardless of circumstance, so I get it.
You deserve a banana leaf.
She's a royal Make-A-Wish kid, basically. Like
oh God. My God. That's it. That is it.
That's pretty much it.
Oh, hey, Pepper.
My dog has joined the podcast.
Yeah, so Harrow's like completely off on business of her own, and the only reason that Gideon knows that she exists is because like the bed sheets are rumpled, it's obvious the paint has been used, and that there's new layers of clothing, and there's now bones strung around, and so the only way that they're communicating is through notes again, and Gideon's like, what's with the bones? And Harrow's response is, ambiance.
Absolutely loved that. Yeah, that was just a hilarious interaction, and that was what I thought she would be doing the whole time, but in a slightly different manner when she like started saying she was gone before they revealed that she was just like boning up the living quarters. Was just like, I bet you she's doing what she did to Gideon, which is she's traveling around at night and putting bones everywhere or trying to find bones, like doing like sneaky necromancer shit. Like that's what I thought, but it's like, no, she's not hiding the bones. She's just like arranging them everywhere. We're boning up the living quarters.
Committed to the bit. She is committed to the aesthetic. She wants everyone to fucking know there is a ninth house witch in the house.
Right. And Gideon's also like, but also it makes even Magnus a little hesitant, in which case she's like, fuck ambiance on the air. Which I really like that line.
I do that. I also, okay, so my house is full of bones. Any bones you see on our Instagram is just shit I have lying around. And,
what's with the bones, Hannah?
thank you. I have been waiting my whole life for someone to ask that because mostly people are just like,
Okay.
Is it ambiance?
It's absolutely about ambiance, dear.
Well, so considering that the only way that Gideon knows that Harrow is around is because of rumpled bed sheets and like new dirty clothing, one day Gideon does realize that it's been at least 24 hours since Harrow was in the ninth corridors, and she goes, okay, where is she? And her logic is that Harrow has been prevented from coming home by death, impairment, or too busy. Or if Hera had chosen to live somewhere, that would have left Gideon free to put her shoes on Harrow's bed and indiscriminately rifle through her things, which she would love to do.
I love that that's her big too. She's like, oh God, if Harrow was away, I could put my shoes on her bed. I'm like,
She's
dream
so
big.
Good. She's so good.
Oh, Gideon. Or Harrow ran away, which is just definitely, that's not what Harrow would do. So Gideon narrows it down and notes that if Harrow died, it would rely on the world's happiest accident or murder. But if it was murder, what if the murderer was weird, which would make the subsequent marriage to Gideon really awkward? So maybe what if they could just like swap friendship bracelets instead?
That's such like a sister sibling like type reaction or like line. It's so funny to characterize a relationship. It's like, oh well, of course I would marry the person that murdered my like arch rival / kind of sibling.
No, but the logic is hilarious. It can't be that she's too busy because she would never go missing without strict guards against mischief. She would have known she'd be gone for more than 24 hours, and she would have put an extremely strict guard on her closet so that not every button would be done up exactly one off.
Oh my God, I forgot about that. I love
She's so good. Gideon is so good.
peak prank energy because
But, like,
I'm
they're
definitely the
such
kind of
the
prankster where I
sweetest
go
pranks.
too hard or too small. Exactly. I feel like it's just enough to be genuinely annoying.
But completely harmless. They're so funny. I'm going to put my shoes on your bed and I'm going to redo every button in your closet one off.
If Harrow had been away for more than 24 hours, she also would have left like a stack of notes explaining to Gideon exactly what she wanted Gideon to do and to not talk to anyone and not tell anyone that she was gone and to go fuck herself.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah, and Gideon's like, oh, okay, right, like something happened, so I guess I gotta go look, right? So she starts searching, and she keeps searching, and then she's like, fuck this, I'm gonna go for lunch, and screw Harrow, I can't find her. And then halfway through, like, she decides, like, during lunch, like I'm not gonna find her. It's like too bad for her.
I give up.
And then like I give up. And then right after lunch, she starts searching again.
She goes, I gave up. I'm giving up.
Right. And then she finds a terrace that she's not really explored before because it's half fallen into the ocean, and it leads to a spiral staircase, which leads to a tower that once had like a bank of elevators and maybe the Venus de Milo question mark.
I love this. There literally is like they talk about there's a statue there that has no arms and legs and is very like chic. And also just this bank of elevators with like tiled floor, and it feels so
weird.
Modern hotel.
Oh, I
No,
got,
it feels
I got
like our
imagery
era.
of, and of course, everything I say is a fucking Harry Potter reference. I wish it weren't. But it reminds me of like scenes from the movies where they're in the Ministry of Magic and everything's pretty dark and shiny and reflective and a little bit floaty.
Yeah. I feel like that's good,
I
too.
feel that for sure.
I don't know. That was the imagery in my head. I want to point out one thing, but that happened before this that I'm starting to get suspicious about, and this is more of the Cannon House setting that Hannah is also apparently confused about, which is interesting since she's so many books in. But there's a lot of descriptions of things that have been soaked. Apparently, we've talked about like. So first of all, apparently we're getting a little bit more information about the setting, about the larger setting in this chapter, which is we're kind of like only kept to a small middle range of floors, and that there's like a whole bunch of stuff underneath and a whole bunch of floors above us that we don't have access to for whatever reason. And then even in this middle swath of floors that's hundreds of feet above the water, apparently above the sea, we have like a lot of algae growing on things. Mm-hmm. And we have water swollen doors that we're going through. Like, what apocalyptic thing happened here? Did the seas rise? This is freaky.
Yeah, I don't know. Well, during this exploration, though, she hears voices, and it's the sixth. So, the warden.
This is everyone's favorite characters. I absolutely adore Camilla and Pal so much.
Okay, anyway, the warden, who is Palamedes Sextus, so that's the necromancer, and Camilla Hecht, his cavalier, are taking readings that seem to note how old artifacts in the room are, and they range from 9,000 to 50-ish years old, which is a range. And
it's a huge fucking range. And it's very weird because, okay, I do not have their readings. I do not have their data. And clearly I'm an insane person. And I mean that with so much love. I genuinely am. But I want to know more. Is this bimodal? Are there like a bunch of things that are now 9,000 years old and a bunch of things that are 50 years old? Or is it just that stuff has been continuously added over the course of like 9,000 years?
There's got to be more than that because she said two things are 3,000 years apart. And that's neither 9,000 versus 50. So more.
So like, clearly people have come here to this house, except we know that they haven't. We know that there's like crazy prohibitions on coming here at all. And the only people who live here are like priests and skeletons.
I was just going to say, I just keep getting more and more suspicious because there's blast doors everywhere. Like there's very much so like an apocalypse bunker feel to this, but also there's like clearly a tower attached, which is the opposite of what you would want in an apocalypse bunker, unless you're hiding things underneath this. At this point, I'm basically picturing this as the Greenbrier, the place that they built the nuclear bunker in for the president in West Virginia. Are you guys familiar with that?
No.
Tell us more.
In West Virginia, there's a hotel called the Greenbrier, and underneath it, they basically built a nuclear fallout shelter that was supposed to house the U.S. government during the Cold War, and it was there the entire time. And then it was accidentally discovered, and that's when they started building, like, the facility in the Rockies or wherever it is now. But there was like an entire nuclear.
So much.
There's an entire nuclear bunker under it. And that's kind of what I'm picturing now, just with a tower and it being on the ocean. So I'm picturing like Malibu evil villain lair, but also like the Greenbrier, basically. Like some combination of that, like built onto a cliff and like hidden levels. That's kind of what I picture now.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, blast doors. Maybe this was the apocalypse shelter for flooding or, something else. I don't know. I am highly suspicious. I am super suspicious right now.
And they're kind of like, they're wandering around in here, and Camilla's kind of like, yeah, like mostly just kind of being obnoxious to Palamedes, and Palamedes
She's like scouring her mind for rare negatives.
Indubitably, Warden, and he's like, shut up and pay attention. And they're referencing kind of like how nerdy their house is, and that like his fifth circle and third circle exams, and like that part of what he's had to do or has had to do previously is this type of dating type of thing with like fake records. So like he knows how to do this, but they're interrupted, and we kind of get interrupted in this because Cam notices Gideon, who's lurking in the shadows, being ninth.
Pal notices her because apparently necros can detect, like...
That's right.
People.
So they, Cam explodes into action. They have this very awesome fight. Gideon's very much like, this is so cool.
She did a backflip down the stairs.
She did a backflip down the stairs. She like kicked her knife into her hands. Like, look at this. This is so fucking cool.
I desperately want to know if Tamsin Muir like is a fencer or is a choreographer, because her writing of fight choreo is just so stellar. It's so completely epic, and she captures very different styles. Like when Nibirius fights, it feels very different than Camilla. Camilla really does like explode outwards. She's just like pops into action and she's everywhere at once. Oh, she's so cool.
Palamedes is like, whoa, 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 whoa. Like, time out, time out. They're very much like into it. And he has to like tell Cam to disengage and then like throw up some sort of really fucked up ward to keep
barrier.
Yeah, to keep Gideon from keep going.
Yeah. This description is so creepy. Like when her hand is in it, her skin is sloughing off and she can see it aging before her eyes and just like shriveling up her fingers.
And it's completely illusionary, I think, because she pulls it out and it's fine.
Hard to tell, genuinely.
Maybe not illusionary, because it like very definitely is like, seems like when she puts her hands in it, like she can feel it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was interesting because it seems like she's fine afterwards, but I don't know. I'm leaning towards it's partially an illusion, but also partially like if she had kept going, but really bad things would have happened. The magic system is this is one of the things I wrote down because I've been wondering about this ever since the skeletons started coming about. It seems like once you like put the energy into something, it just like continues going, right? Like skeletons get raised and then they just do their thing and they're not like continuously drawing energy. It just seems like it's like they're autonomous forever. And now I'm just really interested about this type of magic as well. Again, I'm very annoyed that we read one chapter because I have so many questions.
Oh, I made John so sad.
Yeah, it's terrible. Something I'm kind of interested on, like my reread that I don't think I picked up like the first 400 times is Gideon is portrayed as like such a jock and so much into her fighting and like that's all she knows. But she's been around Harrow so much and Harrow's a fucking genius. She actually knows quite a lot about necromancy.
Yeah.
Like she notices how impressive this ward is and clocks what a good necromancer Palamedes is to throw up this type of a ward and to not seem super taxed by it.
Oh, yeah. Only a little bit of blood, sweat. Freaky.
Yeah.
But the funny, I think something that was new, this is new to us, the fact that there are, more than just like bone attacks from necromancers. So the fact that this is a metaphysical sort of attack is new, and he makes some comments about, well, she's an Osseo. I don't know what that makes him, but that does tell us a bit more about various forms of necromancy that seem to be either specialized or maybe it's just what you have available to you from your, I don't know what it is.
Right. Well, I mean, there's 9 houses, so.
Just thought a necromancer was a necromancer. But actually, I guess that's not, I mean, let's see. Let's refresh what Dulcinea told us, something about the 7th, how they more stop time or something like that rather than reanimation. I think that was sort of the distinction that she was making between the 9th and the 7th. Now in 6th, we have this much more non-physical form of necromancy. So yeah, I can see a world in which everybody has an entirely different specialization, and whether that's in the blood versus training.
And I will say that I get the impression that Gideon understands necromancy like broadly because she's been watching Harrow, and she definitely has a handle on like what makes good bone magic. And what makes kind of like shitty bone magic that other necros in...
Dawn.
John's just dying. John, do you want to tell us about bone magic?
What?
But like she understands that, but I think she really hasn't been exposed to any other house, right? And like she hasn't been exposed to more broadly to what to expect, I think, from other houses. She didn't really respond to Dulcinea's point when Dulcinea was talking about it. Yeah, I do think also, to your point, Marie, Gideon is much smarter than anyone gives her credit for, including Harrow. Like, it is actually not a small thing to notice that after just 24 hours that the sheets haven't been slept in. Like, she's paying attention.
Also, she's the one who says that Pal has the eyes of a very beautiful person trapped in resting bitch face.
The greatest description of all time.
It's an interesting obsession that this book has with eye color more than anything else. I couldn't tell you like anybody but Gideon's hair color at this point, and maybe Harrow's. But no, I guess okay, we know hair colors for a few people, but eye color. This is probably what's...
I think Gideon wears sunglasses. It's interesting.
We do know eye colors.
But yeah, we know that Gideon's paying attention and she's freaked out. I think this is so cute. Like, I don't know. So is this a sister thing or is this like a romantic thing?
With respect to what?
Is this enemies to lovers that we're going for with Harrow and Gideon? Or is this just pure like, I hate you because I've been around you my whole life and we don't necessarily get along, but also you are the closest thing in my world and therefore I will die for you.
It's fucking complicated.
Actually, this is a very interesting conversation that I wasn't sure that we ever wanted to bring up because I feel like the community around the Locked Tomb, it's very much a queer community, like online, which makes sense because especially later on, there's themes in these books that are just super duper duper gay in a lot of senses, but also in a way that like, it's kind of like whatever you bring to it.
This is funny because I was texting my friend Andy about this last night. And Andy was saying how funny it is that it's characterized as lesbian necromancers in space when it's actually like a very chaste set of books. There really is like not sex.
So is the smut content warning for nothing?
I just thought we'd add that because of the bone magic.
The smut is us. We are the smut. We are the smut.
Yeah.
Sorry. There is no smut in the books. We are the smut.
Well,
Brooke's like, I was lied to. I'm fucking out of here.
There goes half our audience.
Yeah, sorry. But yeah, I do think it's interesting because like I feel like at some point, I think the conversation will have to come up that when I read these books the first time, I was like, they're roommates. I do not understand this. And then the next time I read it, I was like, oh.
I think that it's not spoilery to say that one of the things that Maria and I have been talking about behind your backs consistently is that in many ways, this whole thing is about different formats of relationships and what love looks like in different contexts, you know? And I think it is more complicated than sister energy or roommate energy or enemies or friends or lovers. It is the bonds that join you and that break you apart and that you would die for. And it is like a real complex investigation of what makes your connection to another person, right?
So no labels.
There was no fucking possible label for this. For any of the relationships in any of these books.
All right. We'll accept that.
And that's partly what makes them so interesting. Okay, so Pal understands right away that Gideon is here looking for Harrow, and he's like, why did you wait so fucking long? If I were gone for 24 hours, like that would never happen. Cam would never wait 24 hours. And she's like, yeah, because you'd be dead. And so he's like, I know where Harrow is. She was, as of last night, down that metal hatch. And he's telling her all these details about blood and like how long it takes to like ossify and like temperatures and all of this. And all at the same time, Gideon's just like yanking at this locked metal hatch and he's like, fucking calves.
I fucking love that. This is like, she makes no effort to like pick the lock. She's like, what if I just pull hard enough that my entire shoulders dislocate? I do think it's also, it just like cracks me up a lot that Gideon, like this whole time also is silent, right? Like, it's so funny to me watching other people talk at Gideon, around Gideon, while Gideon just stands there silently. And finally here, Gideon fucking gives up and is just like, get off your ass and fucking help me.
Love it.
And at that point, Palamedes goes, oh, okay, yeah, sure.
He's nervous around her.
Well, yeah, like everybody's like fucking terrified around her because she doesn't
Ambiance.
talk. And the ambiance.
is really working out well.
And this is also where Gideon's like, oh, right. Like, well, no, I guess like they understood previously. I forgot that like it's a key ring.
Well, no, I think this is where Gideon finds it out.
Gideon doesn't realize it's a key ring until she sees a key on the ring.
Because she sees that there's a key on the ring for Camilla, and they open the hatch. And then also, it always blows my mind how freaking long this ladder is. Like, are we going into another dimension? Like, what the hell's going on here?
It is described as like super eerie and like it's just a pipe with a ladder. There's fucking nothing else, right? You're just going down into the facility.
It's like the service entrance. It always like we're going in the service entrance, like because the elevators are broken.
Definitely fits with John's nuclear bunker idea.
Okay, so we're going down in the nuclear bunker where the only normal human touch is bone prayer decoration. Okay.
Yeah, and it sounds like it's old, so that wasn't Harrow.
I love this, that like the description is, it's what you would conjure when you think facility. It's metal, it's pseudoscientific, it's got like a grill floor, like it's white and metal and shiny and exposed bulbs kind of energy. And then to have the way that Gideon feels safe
Is the bone.
The way human touches in these world is bones wrapped in prayer flags. Like it's so beautiful.
God. This whole description, it feels very like a modern day Frankenstein's lab situation. It's a little alarming.
And isn't this where we have like a whiteboard saying it is done?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
Intriguing.
Like, not ominous. Sure.
One chapter.
So we have it is done. We have a mortuary. We have a preservation room. We have a sanitizer, and we have laboratories. I think we're experimenting on human bodies. Because this is a necromancy book.
You know, this is the thing that nobody ever tells you about magic. It's not just there. You have to workshop it. You got to figure out how to use it well. You don't just pop up a skeleton. First, you spend a lot of time just hitting a femur over and over and over again.
Spoken from experience. She's got a lot of bones.
Redacted.
Okay.
At some point, we're going to have to explain this to people why she has bones, or is this just going to be a running joke for the series?
She already explained ambiance.
Running gag it is.
They're cool.
There. Explanation.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so Pal leads Gideon to the center non-agonal room, and they head down the hallway towards sanitizer, where they immediately find blood, and it's a room with white paneled cubicles, long steel tables, spray heads. You say like lab safety showers. I say autopsy tables.
Yeah, well,
and
they feel
don't
like
forget
autopsy tables, but the like spray heads to me in my head I'm just like picturing safety showers. We may or may not have had an incident with the safety shower this week.
Oh.
It definitely is. I mean, sanitizer conjures the idea of like quarantine, the idea of cleaning potentially, I guess, bodies.
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing that really points it, don't forget the boxes that are the narrow box is perfectly sized to fit a human body.
Oh, gross. Yeah.
Oh my God, I missed that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, and then the blood trail leads to a cocoon of bone, and Gideon just kicks it open, and there's Harrow.
I fucking love that shit. She's like, yeah, that's my friend Harrow. Everyone's like, what's this lump of bone doing here? She's like, no worries. Bam.
And Cam and Pal do some rapid diagnostics, which Gideon's like, wow, is that sex necromancy? And they're like, no, that's like medicine.
Yeah, but clearly it's not. They're sticking one end of a wire into blood and then the other end of the wire into Pal's blood. And what are we doing? Exchanging electrical signals? No, this is not curative science. That's pure necromancy. This guy's a blood necro.
But maybe that's curative science in necromancy
In the future.
world. They're also like, okay, ninth house is even grimmer and creepier than we thought. Anyway, so they're just like, okay, she's just exhausted and dehydrated and passed out. So she fainted, woke up, made the bone cocoon so she'd be safe down there. And so they manhandle Harrow back through the facility, up through the ladder, through the hatch, and Gideon heads off with Harrow on her shoulder towards the ninth quarters, imagining all of the places where she could possibly bang Harrow's head. on their way,
I mean,
on her way back.
To be fair, like in Gideon's defense, she didn't get the opportunity to stick her shoes on the bed or to do all the buttons up wrong. So like she needs some fun.
And Pal just says, it's unbelievably dangerous down there, Ninth. Stop splitting your forces. And he also just has to stick in there, you know, I'm the greatest necromancer of my generation, which definitely wakes Harrow up just enough to say, like hell you are.
Beautiful.
I love that it's like Siri or Alexa. Like they're just waiting for a certain phrase before they come on. And for Harrow, it's like anyone else bragging about their necromancy. She's like, absolutely not. Goes back to
Harrow's
sleep.
slipping into a diabetic coma, basically. Like she just needs water and food, and she's just like, yes, I will wake up to like just continue the ambiance of like, you know, bones and necromancy.
I also wanted to say this just on behalf of Gideon. Were I Gideon, I would be getting kind of pissed off at everybody talking to me like this is my fault. Like, stop splitting your forces. And Gideon's like, she didn't tell me where she was fucking going. Like,
She keeps going off without me and telling me to leave her alone.
I'm not
Why is
doing
this
this.
my
It's not my
fault?
fault.
Not doing a very good job of walking a half step behind her.
But see, you're doing it too.
Great point.
No, I thought this was super. So at the beginning of the chapter, we had all of these descriptors of how nobody's getting along, nobody's doing anything new, everybody's just doing their own routine in their own little cliques. And at the end of this here, it's so cute. We have like collaboration stuff, development.
First team up, 6th and the 9th.
Amazing.
Maybe, possibly.
And it also, I don't think I'm reading into this. It sounds like Palamedes and Harrow have been talking to each other. Either they knew each other maybe via letters on the 9th or something. They're familiar with each other, it feels like.
I think they just see each other around.
So it's more like on a nod basis.
They definitely are super aware of each other in the house. I feel like it's this chapter, right, where Pal tells Gideon to tell Harrow to spend less time in the library and that they know she's been in there because she clinks when she walks because she's covered in bones.
Okay, did I misunderstand this? So it sounded like they were referring to the sanitizer as a library.
I think it's a library, yeah, in the main house.
Yeah, they're telling her like stop, you know, like we know how much time, like get some sleep. We know how much time you've been spending in the library because we always see you there and never anywhere else. And we know how much time you're spending in there, even if you think we don't see you there because Cam says you clink when you walk.
Yeah, and necromancers can detect other human lives.
Well, that too. But also just Harrow, clinkety, clinkety, clinkety with all of her bones.
Why are you talking about me? I don't carry the bones with me, dear listener, most of the time.
Whips one out.
Well, that about wraps it up for Chapter 12. But before we all rehydrate, it's time for the part of Frontline 5th where we play a game. Interstitial. I'm the greatest necromancer of my generation. This week, we are playing a highly conceptual game popular in the dorms of the 6th. Welcome to Multiverse Theory, Wrong Answers Only. In this game, we will ask our hosts to imagine a theoretical alternate universe. You wake up to another balmy day in Canaan House only to discover that your greatest rival, your arch nemesis, your sort of sister, ? Has been missing for 24 hours. Where is Harrow Hark? Wrong answers only.
I think she's on the shortest possible route between every spirit Halloween on Earth, raiding their entire collection of witchy decorations.
For ambiance.
Ambiance.
Wait, Brooke, how do you know that that's what happened?
Well, because I'm the greatest necromancer of my generation!
I think Harrow's had a long distance pen pal that goes to another house, and she's having her teenage rom-com moment the entire time. That's where she's been.
Oh my God.
I was trying to come up with a pun for like Tinder, Grinder, something that like was related to necromancy, and I just couldn't do it.
Bonder.
Eh,
And John, how do you know that that's what happened?
because I'm the greatest necromancer of my generation.
You know, you're both wrong. This is complete nonsense. It's pretty clear that Harrow joined a cult, but like a different cult than the cult she's already in. This is the one that has like flowy dresses. She's got flowers in her hair. She's singing Kumbaya and smoking like a disturbing amount of pot. She's in the 70s is what happened.
Okay, but Hannah, how do you know that that's what happened?
Marie, I am the greatest necromancer of my generation.
Since none of those things happened, I figure it's just as well that we pivot to a rampant speculation. But first, what actually happened in an alternate universe where Harrow was missing is that she actually just decided to, start a coffee shop and become a barista. And so...
No, absolutely not.
No, that's nonsense.
Shut up! I'm the greatest necromancer of my generation.
Like hell
you are.
Like hell you are.
Act 3. It's perfectly explicable. I just need to explic it. So now is the time when we ask our newbies to take a break from exploring the facility to give us their conspiracy theories. So, Brooke and John, what the fuck is happening?
I think we're in a uber dangerous escape room. And I don't think that is, too conspiratorial, to be honest. I mean, we have all these little mysteries that at least Palamedes are like, these are clues to a test. Which, to be fair, we are in, some sort of a training arc that is not involving much in the way of training. So if nothing else, at least there's going to be some mystery that needs to be solved, presumably with some sort of teamwork that we are mostly failing at, although 6th and 9th, good job on you guys. Let's see if we can make this work. And I don't fully understand why it's dangerous, but apparently Harrow is bleeding and not from external injuries. So I don't understand what happened to her. We have not explained that at all. So apparently dangerous. Don't know why. We need to get off this planet at some point. We are supposed to become lictors and massively important necromancers. But so far we have absolutely no idea how, and there's just a lot of mystery. What do you think, John?
I think this is the facility or the lab where they created the lictors and or discovered necromancy. That's what I'm going with for now. And they're gonna have to do it again. All the houses, I'm still going conspiracy theory that all the houses are slowly failing and the energy is leaking out of the universe, and they've been able to slow it down. And I thought this was really interesting, and we didn't get to bring it up. When Gideon wants to join the military, when she's talking about her dreams there, where she'd be dropped out of a ship and kill people, it's really interesting because this would make sense, but the necromancers fight via zombie kind of logic, where they kill someone and then they raise it for their side, so it's a net +2, but they need someone to start the killing. So what it sounds like happens is they drop a bunch of soldiers in, the soldiers kill some people initially, then the necromancers show up and are like, wah, raise the skeletons, and then that's how they actually conquer the planet. And my rampant speculation is that's how they've kept the necromancer power going for so long, is that they've just been killing planets to try to fuel the empire, and they're running out of planets, and that's why the lictors are dying. I don't know. There's something there. We're workshopping this. We're working through it. And then my only other thing is, it sounds like Gideon has never seen Harrow without face paint. That's mentioned there. I don't think we knew that before. She 100% of the time at all times has face paint on, and every part of her body that you can see has paint on it or covered. Anyway, that was just something else I noticed I want to talk about. Yeah, my conspiracy.
Oh my God, John. Right. It's obviously Frankenstein's lab. Oh God, is that where they started you create necromancers. But they're born too.
No, I'm saying that's where they discovered how to make the magic, and or that's where they created lictors.
Oh, freaky. Yeah, the immortal people, right? Because they're 10,000 years old. So how do you do that? It is done.
Well, I guess we'll see if anything of that happens next time when John and Brooke join us to interrogate Harrow. We deserve some more information. Emperor damn it, in Gideon the Ninth, chapters 13 and 14. We get two, John.
You're welcome.
And if you, dear listener, are like Brooke and John reading along for the first time, make sure you find our reading calendar on our website, frontline5th.podbean.com, or follow us on Instagram or TikTok, which are both linked in the show notes. If you like this podcast, please share it with your friends and give us a 5-star rating anywhere you can. And if you didn't like it, feel free to lie. Now, head off to sleep, my baby necros. Mommy and Daddy have some deep spoilers to discuss.
Get in, losers. We're going speculating.
Spoiler warning. This portion of the podcast is 98% spoilers and 2% snickering.
Seriously, we will spoil anything and everything in the series up through Nona the Ninth. If that's not what you want, turn back now.
Act 4. Because necromancers lived bad lives. I definitely have things to say about
I do too.
What their spoiler or their conspiracy theories are.
This was the number one thing that I wanted to say was like, we should have chosen people so much dumber than the people we chose. They're too smart. They're too smart, Marie.
No. This is perfect. This is perfect because I'm so excited for somebody to really have the experience on a first read through of actually totally getting what's going on without having to reread. You know what I mean?
Bits and pieces, because they're also part of the whole thing is like, as you're reading it, you're speculating, you know, like you're percolating, you're trying to figure out what's going on, but you're always uncertain. You're always off balance. And so they are completely correct, but they do not know yet that they are correct.
Yeah.
So they're still feeling that off balanceness. It's pretty great.
Yeah. But it's like the fact that they're like, oh, I think this is the lictor lab where like necromancy started. It's like, it is both the lab where they made lictors and it's also the lab where necromancy started.
Where necromancy started.
Like, you are so fucking right.
Oh, it's dead on. It's really, really good. It like.
Nailed it.
Yeah, 100%.
Got it in one.
Oh, yeah.
So.
Like fully. And they also actually have seen, this has happened multiple times, but they've seen little bits and pieces while we're going through the plot that they call out in ways that I think are really like clever and thoughtful and I hadn't thought about. So for instance, I wanted to put this in there. They talk, when we were talking about like the ward that Palamedes throws up, and they were talking about whether it's like illusionary or not. And I realized we see Harrow experience a similar ward, but she should be able to sort of heal herself. In contrast, there's no reason that Gideon should be able to heal herself. And I started wondering, do you think it's because Gideon is the child of God? Like, do you think Gideon has like innate power to semi-lictor herself?
But see, if that were the thing, then Palamedes should have been startled by it.
That's true. That he should have been, yeah. Otherwise, because he totally, it seems completely reasonable to him. But, you know, but they're picking up on all these little discrepancies that make me suddenly go back into that space where I'm like, ooh.
As soon as John started, like both of them, as soon as Brooke and John started talking about that, I was like, oh my gosh, like straight face.
I know, I'm desperately trying to control my face, which I don't do well.
No. That's the problem.
But I'm also like trying to not go like too hard so that it's like I'm doing this like solemn nod no matter what they do, just trying to keep my shit together.
Also very tickled that John was so pissed.
Oh my God, that was the best. I actually like, so I have a lot of anxiety about many things, but especially about people not liking me. And the whole time I'm sitting there being like, do you think John's actually mad at me? Is he really mad at me? I'm literally going to a party with him this afternoon. I was like, oh no.
I don't think he's actually mad at you.
I think he'll survive.
Okay.
I think he'll be okay.
I also think he's probably started reading right now.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. Can I bring up actually a weird thing that relates to like, to Pal being surprised or not? Mm-hmm. There's this moment where, so like Gideon kicks open the bone cocoon and both like Pal and Camilla flinch. And I think it's because they think that it like would hurt Harrow either physically or maybe like emotionally, necromantically. Right. But weirdly, the actual thing that freaks him out, I have it here somewhere. There's this like weird moment where air wheezed out of Harrow's lungs. That's when like Gideon picks her up and throws her over her shoulder. Air wheezed out of Harrow's lungs and the bone cocoon dissolved into a shower of chips and pebbles. This seemed to be the one thing to really unnerve the sixth house necromancer. And I was like, what the fuck is going on there? What about that is like the thing that is wild?
Well,
that,
and then he like goes and he's like measuring it and like being like how much of it is
yeah.
and like how thick it is. I think it's just like he's also really unnerved by the amount of power it would
that
take
Harrow has
to like throw that up, to hold it, and to like basically hold it without, like basically to throw it up and hold it without it like taking constant energy.
Yeah, which actually, you know, so this goes to something our newbie said as well, right? They were talking about how the skeletons, you just kind of put them together and they walk around. But that's like not entirely true. Harrow sort of has to focus on her skeletons to keep them going. She discards them when she doesn't need them anymore because it is like extra work. And the skeletons in the first house are not normal skeletons. They're literally like a real soul piloting a skeletal body. Mm-hmm. So it's not like you need to put any energy into that because the soul is literally what's driving it. And so it is interesting. Maybe it's really like impressive that not only did Harrow create this thing, but it's still partially holding together even when she's like fully unconscious. And it's not until she literally lets go and the air wheezes out of her lungs that it fully disintegrates into chips, that she's able to completely hold it without any concentration at all. She certainly is. I mean, I think there are 3 people so far in the series who say that they're the greatest necromancer of their generation. It makes me giggle every time. And Ianthe is one of them, and Pal is one of them. And I think that both of those, I think they're probably right. They are genuinely these truly other level necromancers that have not been seen in years and years and generations on their house. And Harrow is for sure one of those. She is one of the great necromancers of probably the necromantic era, but that's partially because she's powered by minimum 200 souls. Yeah.
Oh, that was the other thing that I wanted to bring up that John brought up was he is so much onto something with that he picked up on with Gideon wanting to be on the dropship and first on the ground to power the first wave of Thanergy, and him picking up on maybe this is a problem. And it's like, yeah, I do think that that is a huge thing of what is going on right now, is that Jod has been purposefully like going out, and part of what the invasion forces are doing are killing planets so that resurrection beasts can't use them.
Yeah.
But also perhaps flipping planets so that you can have Thanergy planets, because otherwise, like, there's no other way to have your population out there. And so it's also a way to, like, his single focus is on the, like, billionaires that escaped.
Oh, yes.
And catching them.
The man holds a grudge. He's, like, really just not chill.
Yeah. And so it's like, you really are getting to a point where, like, this is unsustainable. Like, you are running out of places in the galaxy that are fit for human life because you are killing them off with necromancy. Yeah. And, like, necromancy is a zero-sum game. And so, like, the fact that he, like, picked up on that of, like, oh, I think, like, this has been his theory from the very beginning, and it is so spot on and so close to, like, we haven't seen direct evidence for it necessarily, but it's so spot on to, like, kind of what I think is one of the themes and one of the end games of the series as well, of basically, like, necromancy is not sustainable, necromancy is dying.
I mean, so, like, yeah, he's halfway there, right? Because he keeps talking about how maybe, like, all the houses are kind of falling apart, and they are a little, but I think mostly things are going okay on the micro level, on the level of, like, the people that we are talking about. But if you look on the macro level at the entire society, it's going to shit. And, you know, like, clearly they're having serious problems with these planets that they have colonized, where they're suppressing the people. They're having both rebellions and Blood of Eden. And then I agree, they keep expanding. And the amount of power it must take to power any of these things.
Expanding because you have to keep the only system that is Thanergetic is Dominicus.
You have to keep killing planets
in order for necromancy to continue, which is, like he pointed out, a zero-sum game. Like, you have to keep expanding, and when you run out of places to keep expanding, this whole domino, it's a pyramid scheme. It's going to collapse.
Oh, 100%. It's a pyramid scheme that's been going for 10,000 years, too. You've eaten up most of the resources. Like, you know, they are limited in what they can do. Actually, can we talk about something else that Brooke picked up on that I, like, lost my shit over? Was the sodden doors and this, like, the algae in the pool and the, like, yeah, I mean, she's talking about how wet everything was, and I was trying, again, so hard to, like, control my face because I was like, river, 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 river.
Well, river, 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 and also, like...
And also apocalypse, flooded. But yes, it absolutely flooded. The reason the whole planet is so blue is that it's mostly ocean, because presumably the ice caps fully melted and the sea rose by, like, a minimum of, like, 15 feet. Yeah, I mean, I think this is totally on point that both of those pieces are there, but it was just so funny to hear her say it, and I was, like, trying to hold my shit together. And then John talks about the nuclear, you know, like, shelter, and I was like, oh, so it was a nuclear apocalypse. Yeah, it was completely fascinating. But this, so depending on whether you think it's like just, I mean, because it definitely flooded, but it flooded 10,000 years ago. And clearly it's receded some since then, in some manner.
Also, but it's just on the ocean. It's on the ocean, so it is just damp and wet.
But we did talk about potentially part of Canaan House being in the river. And Brooke picked up also on this thing that like there's huge portions of Canaan House that seem inaccessible, where you know they must be there. That space must exist, but you can't quite get to it. And the facility is one of those spaces, but we know it goes even farther beyond that. So we talked about the possibility that the facility and maybe the lictoral chambers, their studies are also in the river. And I think this kind of goes to the question of how dangerous is the facility? Because everyone always says that the facility is dangerous, right? Teachers convinced that it's like end of the world dangerous. But I was surprised to hear that from Palamedes. That Palamedes is like, it is unbelievably dangerous down there. And weirdly, although obviously there is huge danger there in Harrow the Ninth, that's because it's an imaginary version being haunted by Commander Wake. Here, there's really nothing that's dangerous aside from the tests themselves, which you can opt into or not, unless you actually treat it like a situation where things from the river can cross through.
Well, and it's kind of like it gets to something that keeps popping up, but isn't completely focused on or explained, but I think it's going to become a huge theme, is what the heck are these devils?
Oh my God, I can't wait to find out.
What possesses Column? You know, like why, like at the end of this book, why is it that Teacher is so freaked out when Silas is doing the siphoning? Why is it that Cytherea gets so freaked out when Silas is doing the siphoning?
But speaking of Cytherea, I like the idea that the river connects some of these places because it explains actually how she gets into some locked places that she shouldn't be able to. Like her crazy bone construct, when it comes out of nowhere to kill the fourth, it keeps getting into spaces that it shouldn't be able to based on its size and the size of the doors. And so I wonder if it's actually traveling through the river. And similarly, it literally kills Jean-Marie in the second lictoral lab. Right?
Out of nowhere.
Which has a locked door and Gideon has the only key. Like, so the way that you get there potentially is through the river, which I think is interesting.
Completely switching gears, I love that this is how early we get the mention of the friendship bracelets.
Okay, how is it mentioned more than just this time and then the fact that Ianthe and Princess Kiriona have friendship bracelets?
I don't think so.
I know, but I fucking love that. That's like such a callback. What an insane level of callbackness that Tamsin threw in there.
Right, but it also implies that like Kiriona assumes that Ianthe
Killed Harrow
is responsible for Harrow's like murder.
Yes, which
would also imply that she was always kind of waiting in the wings to stab Ianthe in the back.
Oh, 100%. That's what I was going to say. She is like, that friendship bracelet is marked this woman for death.
Yeah.
Like, it does not go well for Ianthe from here.
Yeah. I think it's really interesting. I don't know if they'll pick up on it or if we should bring it up later on. But I do like as well that our newbies picked up on the obsession with eye color.
Oh my God, I forgot about that already. That was amazing. What a pull. What a pull. Oh.
Especially the obsession with eye color. And then that also kind of brings up like there was some small kerfuffles in various online forums about kind of like fan art and depicting these characters because it's like there actually is like before Tamsin decided that she couldn't really be on the internet because you have to be super careful as an author when you're still writing a series that you're not on the internet and not being subjected to fan art and fan fiction because then you've got like this weird tricky legal thing of like if you see any fan fiction and then you accidentally
write it into your actual book,
then you've got like weird legal shit. So even though Tamsin is like used to be terminally online, she's basically been banned from her own
Yeah.
fandom, which is tragic. And I think there's even like a This American Life episode about it, honestly.
Oh my God, I'll have to go listen.
Yeah, where she's basically talking about like how tragic it is that she's like can't be part of.
I mean, part of it is also like professional pride. Like you're like, I want to create this crazy twisty story and I don't want to rely on other people coming up with their ideas about what's happening. I want it to be mine.
No, it's more like she wants to be able to participate and be in there with it. And like she was so big on Tumblr and so much in a part of this. And now it's like a land you can't go to.
You can never go home again. That's a classic thing for witches. They can never go home again.
It's like you created a country that you can't live in, right?
Oh, I'm sorry. Are you talking about the first house? Boom. Dominicus God reference.
But so before that, she does have a Tumblr post where she describes all of these characters. And because Tamsin is a Kiwi, all of these characters are basically New Zealand ethnicities. And so Gideon and Harrow are like Maori. And pretty much everybody, like kind of like the point I wanted to make was that in the book, everybody should be assumed to be non-white, and the only characters who are described by their skin color or hair color, really very obviously described, are the ones who are white.
Yeah, it's got to be the third, right? I feel like the third has very...
The third and Abigail Pent.
That's interesting. I think this is absolutely classic and speaks to like some of the automatic preconceptions that everybody has, that I have, and that I'm trying to shed. Because I basically imagine all characters as reflections of myself.
Yeah.
Like to the degree of height. Like everyone is basically just me. And it's very clear that that's not the case here from what she's added in afterwards. And then actually in Nona, there's a brief moment when it's intimated that Jod may actually be part Maori.
Yeah, he is.
You know, and so like there's also, but that's one of the only times it actually gets brought up. And I really do like the intentionality of not needing to talk about people's skin tone because A, that's not the point. And B, it allows people to like force all sorts of preconceived like prejudices on top of what they think a skin tone means about a personality. And this way she can create a personality independent.
But it also brings up the whole thing of generally in Western literature, people are only described, there's your skin tone, or you are only really obviously described if you are not white. And in this case, you're only ever obviously described if you are white.
I love the reversal there.
And that's obvious. Like, it's very specific. It's very intentional. Like, that is a purposeful thing. But it also goes to kind of like calling back to like previously in this episode of me saying that these books are super gay. And it's like, they are, but not in a way that I think a lot of readers who weren't themselves identifying in some part of the queer community would identify themselves. Like, you wouldn't, if you are very straight, I don't think that you would clock a lot of these things.
Right. Because it's not overt. And it's certainly, they don't use, literally, if lesbian necromancers was not in the little quote that gets put on the front of the book, lesbian's not used anywhere in here. Gay is not used anywhere is in here. Jod, who, you know, mixed feelings about him, but I stan all of my bi friends. I love that God is bi, but that's not explicitly stated, right? And it doesn't need to be. And I really appreciate that.
Yeah, and that's kind of the point of the books, is that it is not, it doesn't need to be pointed out or harped on or made a big deal of. It's just kind of a thing, and there's like little throwaway lines about, you know, so and so getting married off to like the prince of whatever, right? Or like that gender doesn't really matter, and then like obviously things get really gender bendy and twisty in Nona. I appreciate that the way that these books are written brings up these things in a way of being like, I don't know how to say this in a way of just saying like, it doesn't give me the ick.
Oh, no, I think that's right, though, because what it is, you can go too far. You can like try and overemphasize how gay of a book you are, or the fact that you have characters who have, you know, like many different ethnicities, and you're trying to like just check a bunch of boxes. And that feels really gross when it feels like you're just trying to like check a bunch of boxes to be woke enough to be good enough. And I really I feel like your point was that if you look at most of Western literature, what is assumed to be normal is to be white and to be straight. And we don't need to describe normal because it's background. And she's decided that everything's normal. And I fucking love that.
Yeah.
It's like, we don't need to over describe anything. All of this is just like,
that's
normal.
how it is.
It doesn't have to be, and it doesn't have to be segmented and labeled, right? Like, I mean, we talked about love and how there's very few labels in the way that these love relationships exist.
Even to the point of being like, it's been Halloween, right? Like, this is going to come out way after Halloween, but it's obvious that we recorded this right after Halloween.
Tells you about our pre-recording.
Right? This tells you about our pre-recording schedule. This was obviously recorded right around Halloween. I saw so many couples dressed up as Gideon and Harrow, and you're like, love that for you. Also, definitely not couples goals.
And yeah, exactly. Let's have a less abusive relationship. That's like really endgame is fucking Palamedes and
I do not think that's endgame either.
well, but they don't have a sexual relationship at all, but I think they have the most perfect love relationship of anybody.
See, I don't agree. I do not agree.
Okay, go ahead.
I think they have like the most incredibly codependent, tragic relationship.
Well, then I feel like you're not paying enough attention to Ianthe and Coronabeth, who have a very codependent.
Theirs is toxic. Theirs is toxic. Theirs is incredibly codependent and incredibly toxic. And I don't think that Cam and Pals and incestuous. And I don't think that Cam and Pals is like toxic to the same degree, but I do think that it is tragic. I think that it is tragic to be so incredibly codependent to such an extent that you are willing to accept non-being.
You're willing to fold your whole self into someone else and completely sacrifice your autonomy and your single selfhood.
Right.
It's interesting.
Like that is not perfect love.
And I'm still like, goals. But this is cool. We can have different takes.
To me, I'm like that's not goal. Like to me, I'm like, okay, the relationship that I would say so far, like that I have seen in the book where I'm like, okay, yeah, is like Magnus and Abigail
and Magnus. Yes, exactly. God, I love them so fucking much.
Mom and Dad, I'm like, okay, yep, you guys got it.
They're good people. I really respect them.
Right? But like everybody else is just a little bit too unhinged.
Which also is something that I think is really valuable about what she's doing here, is that she's not willing to make caricatures. And it's ironic because actually the entire structure of the houses and the expectations for what you are like if you were from a house is a caricature.
Yeah.
Right? But she's making sure that you know that there's different pieces underneath it, that there are many different like shades of who you are, and who you display yourself as is not necessarily the same thing as all of the pieces that make you up.
Whew. Well, yeah.
That was fun.
That was a heavy way to leave it, but Act 5. See you next time, my little nunlets. Well, looks like we seriously need to take a minute to recuperate, rest, and rehydrate, so we will be back next week to run through chapters 13 and 14. If you want to follow along with us, our reading calendar is available on our website at frontline5th.podbean.com, and you can follow us on Instagram and TikTok, which are linked in the show notes. If you enjoyed this podcast, please tell your friends and give us a 5-star rating anywhere you can. And of course, if you didn't enjoy the podcast, feel free to lie. Finally, if you have any fun theories you'd like to share with us, feel free to email us at frontline5th@gmail.com. With that, I'll just remind you not to unlock any tombs or enter any doors without permission because, ghosts. Bye! Frontline 5th is a Locked Tomb podcast conceived by Maria Adamaco and starring Maria Adamaco, Hannah Grenwald, Brooke Anderson, and John Ryan. Our cover art was designed and created by Maria Adamaco, who also edited this episode. Our fabulous music was composed and recorded by Blake Anderson. Special thanks this week to Sonia for giving us inspiration for this week's game. The Locked Tomb series is a completely dope-ass book series by Tamsin Muir, who does not know we exist and is in no way affiliated with this podcast.